Hi, this is Top K Dramas with Bruce and Alice.
Hey.
I'm Alice, it's Bruce. In case we never introduced ourselves.
I don't know why we needed to do that, but okay.
Because I was watching a show yesterday and this woman had a podcast. It's a show on Apple TV.
Yeah.
And so when she starts her podcast, she says her name and I was like, ooh, that's so cool. So it just sounded cool when she says her name, like, and I am. So I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
Pachinko, episode 6.
Yes.
Ooh, it was a little gloomy.
Very gloomy.
Like our weather the last few days here in Southern California. We had a little bit of overcast and we just don't know. Like everybody gets depressed. We're just like, oh, you don't know what to do with ourselves. We're like, I don't have no energy. I don't want to do anything. Can we just stay home under the blankets and watch TV? That's how I've been feeling.
That is Southern California living. I mean, literally, it's just been overcast, but it's sucked like the energy out of a lot of us Southern Californians. It just.
I feel like bad for saying that.
Yeah, we suck. We really do. Because Angie, she just sent me my sister, my older sister Angie. She just got sent me a picture, and it's like Colorado got like 6 inches of snow or something over the weekend. Yeah, no, real talk. And then like I think on the East Coast, like 10 inches dropped someplace, and so it's like, so other people are like going through weather. We are going through gloom.
It's a little overcast.
June gloom has hit us a little early, and we're just like, can't wait till the summer.
Nothing's
and yet we can both at the same time, because then it's gonna get hot in here. You're gonna see us all sweating during the videos.
Because we're in an office and it's like,
and I have to keep the window closed and everything. But anyway, there's bigger problems out there.
Yes.
But Pachinko.
Yeah, so it was a little gloomy till we get to the last scene. Bruce is like, what? Oh my God. You have to stop and watch it.
One of my 3 sentences. Be quiet. I got it.
Oh, yeah.
3 sentences. Go. So, sentence number 1, Hana comes back into everyone's lives, and we find out how she's been living over the last few, I'm assuming, decades. Sentence number 2, Solomon gets an offer that he might not be able to refuse in regards to opening up another Pachinko, I don't know what you call it. Parlor? Yes, parlor. And then sentence number 3, Sunja has a baby boy, and Hansu relieves his wife of her conjugal duties. I had to say
that was your third sentence?
I know. I had to say it.
After everything that happened, you had to put that in?
I know. I'm so petty, but it was so amazing. I don't know why. It was like, I'm not even kidding, folks. Like, I was watching this episode, and I'm just like, man.
He's falling asleep.
This episode is like, this one's hard to watch. Like, it's kind of slow. It's good information. It's good stuff. But I'm just like, what's wrong with this episode? I just couldn't figure it out. And then I see my man Eamon Ho, and I'm like, him. Oh, that's what I was missing. That's what I was missing. Oh my goodness! Hey, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I would describe. I'm just like, look, he's missing. He is an important part of this gumbo. Of a show. I mean, because it really is a mix of massive storylines going across time periods and stuff like that. And so it's a bit hard to, I don't want to say it's hard to keep track of, but he's a very necessary part in order to keep my attention. I ain't gonna lie to you. If it wasn't for him, I'd be like, huh.
So I'm reading the book and I'm over halfway through, but I noticed while we were watching today, my brain was like on fire, like a pinball machine, like a pachinko machine. It was going bing, 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 back and forth. Like, was it the book? Was it this? Oh my God, the book said this. Oh my God, wait. And then I was like, wait a minute, I need to stop. Focus on the movie. But just focus on the show. Forget about the book.
Exactly.
So we start the intro in Osaka, 1975, and we see young Solomon. Yeah. We get introduced to a young Hannah.
Yes.
And we right away get introduced to her and
Yeah.
her ways,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
right?
I feel like they made her a bit older. Like I was just, I don't know. I felt a way about that.
I kind of didn't like her, but
I
of
mean, I
course
think
that she
that's
was
the whole.
meant.
I think that's, yeah, that's the whole purpose. And so, the directors definitely got this one right in regards to just like you. Just, I'm looking at it just like kind of like, yeah,
So
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, me too. So what happens is at the grocery store, she goes and gets him off the. I guess they don't go to the same school because he's like, what, didn't you tell me you were coming or something?
Yeah, they look like they were in different uniforms.
Okay. Well, they go to a convenience store and she gets him to steal candy and he gets in trouble, gets sent to the police station,
Mm-hmm.
and the owner, I mean, he was adamant about, you know, punish this kid or else,
Yeah, all these these
Koreans.
another Korean person, and so keeping keeping the tension between the Japanese and the Koreans is clearly is something that now we get a little bit more of a taste of it for Solomon when he was younger, right? And so
How it was,
that it was
yes.
still there because there's a it's like if we're taking a social historical perspective on it, there's a tendency to kind of blur those lines. Like,
Mhm.
oh, it wasn't really that bad. It's what we do in the United States. It's like, ooh, am I about to? Nah, I'm not
Stop.
gonna say.
I'm like,
I was about to blow this
here,
thing up. I
here
was
he
really about to
goes.
go. I was about
Let's
to go all
continue.
in. Yes,
Let's
go, go,
continue.
go, go,
So his
go.
father comes to pick him up, and they're ready to punish him.
Mm,
And then they get a phone call,
yes,
and
they did.
the police officer says, you have friends somewhere high.
You have a powerful friend somewhere.
Okay,
Hmm.
let's
We
continue.
already know where this is going, but it's, man, just the deliciousness of this
I
unwrapping is just, man, it is
know.
so, I love it. I love
And
this
then he's
part.
like,
Yeah.
who called? And the father's like, it doesn't matter. But and so even the father was like, she made you do it, right? Like it was
Mm,
her.
yeah.
And so the father ends up, he tells him he's going to send him to America.
Yeah.
And
Mother
so,
and his mother always wanted him to go, and
so we
that
don't
was a
know what
wrap.
happened
You
to his
want to know
mother.
what was super dope? Did you notice that in that scene that they were pulling like they pulled the camera away from the father and the son? It's like
Yet far
like
away,
creating
distance.
distance. Oh my goodness, that was directors. That was a
Because what?
brilliant
How did you
freaking
feel by
choice.
watching it like that?
Like just like the distance between the father and the son growing more and
Mhm.
more. I mean, and then clearly with the whole United States, like I'm sending you to America, but it was just like I think even the distance between the father and the son increasing also. Man,
Mm.
I that was stunning to me. I really was just like, whoa, man, that was so deep. And then I took the context. I was like, man, that was dope. That was
Mm.
a great decision. Great decision,
I
directors.
didn't think about it, but when you mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, they did do that. And again, it's to conjure up feelings like they're
Yeah.
growing apart.
Mm-hmm.
So now we go back um to Sunja and the brother-in-law scolding them, his
Yeah.
wife and Sunja for selling the watch.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be
Well, no, more specifically, paying off
paying
his
his
debt
debt.
and basically emasculating him.
Yes, because I mean, I know you're watching, and especially if you're younger, you're like, maybe what's the big deal? But that's pretty big deal because as a man, you're supposed to, especially back then,
Especially
culturally,
back then, yes.
you're supposed to take care of your family.
Provider,
And so
breadwinner.
that makes him, and then everyone's going to know. He's like, everyone already knows what happened,
Yeah.
so he, like you said, he just, yeah.
Yeah, he flipped out. Well, I mean, he even said as much. Didn't he say something to the effect of like my balls are shriveling or something like that? Like,
Yes.
I mean, like really, like I was like, wow, that's pretty intense, bro.
And
Like,
his wife's like, oh my God, why do
yeah,
you have to
yeah,
talk like that?
yeah. I mean,
For
a
sure.
man only has so much, and a poor man has even less in regards to, and that is the
And
only
they
thing that
took
he has
everything.
less.
They
Yeah,
took everything that he, yeah, that he had.
yeah.
So he ends up taking off, um, and he leaves, and Sunja's water breaks. She's about to
Yes.
have that baby early, they
And
said.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then we break over and we see Hannah. or we see her mother and Solomon's father talking to the doctor, and she has AIDS.
Man.
Okay, this is 1989.
1989, when AIDS was the apocalypse.
Like it for us.
Like real talk, like it was the apocalypse.
If you are younger listening to us, it's almost like when COVID came out, you were afraid. Mm-hmm. And even later too, because I remember when I was pregnant with Riley, I mean, that was already 2000, and I had to take an AIDS test, and even then I was like, right, because you don't know.
Well, it hasn't, honestly, it hasn't been until relatively recently that they got that one under control, meaning that there's medications that there's still no cure for it, from my understanding. However, they can reduce it in your blood system so much to where it's not even,
you could just live a full life. It almost felt like COVID. And
you can't transfer, like, and then they develop things to where you can't transfer it to someone. Not you can't transfer it, because you can always transfer it, but a person can continue having sex because that's how with their partner. Yeah. If they like do, I don't know the word, it's like boosters, something like that, but they can take something that'll prevent the transfers.
Yeah. So I that was a pretty big deal to have that. And then the doctors even said, we can't have her here because if our other patients hear about this, and we're not equipped to take care of her.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it's actually really, given this COVID generation and all the, the phenomena of COVID and everything, to spend some more time, because it really did like hit me like yo, HIV, like like it really like struck me like, whoa, HIV. And I remember having a conversation. I think it was when I first started teaching, because it still wasn't reined in, we still didn't understand it by then. And we had this conversation in class about public health. And it's like, what would make us put people in quarantine against their will? It was kind of that, right? Which again, it seems so relevant to today. And one of the students said something like, well, what if HIV became airborne? Because like I said, back then it was a death sentence. And, but also back then it was only transferred through, it's not through sexual relations, but
that's how
it was
blood
and like
and sex. Like we thought you got it if you had sex with somebody that had AIDS. That's how we looked at it. Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, or you got a blood transfusion,
or you got some blood transfusion or whatever. But the reason why I'm just spending just a bit more time on it is just to say that's what COVID could have been. Right. It's like, because I remember, it's like people keep on still saying it's like it was a hoax. It wasn't that serious. We should have just let it run out. We should have just let it just run its course or everything. But we knew so little about it that it was like, but what if? And somebody, right, all the CDC people and the WHO and all of that stuff, they were like, but what if this is like HIV and it's airborne? And we have, I mean, it took us decades to figure out HIV. Yeah. And so are we really going to run it like that? And so that was the thing that I was like, when I saw that, it just really made me like think about today and going like, man, we really didn't know. The scientists, they didn't know what this was. And it could have been as bad as this. It just airborne. And I'm like, whew. To me, that was really deep. If it wasn't deep for you, then I get it. But that really struck me.
It brings back a time.
Yeah, I mean, Magic Johnson, like, that was me. That's when it really hit me. It was when Magic Johnson got it, and it was. It also
made you feel in the beginning when AIDS first came out. It also made you feel a little dirty. If
you had premarital or sex with someone who had it,
and then they were saying a lot of it was passed through the homosexual community, so it was just, they put a lot of bad connotations on getting AIDS, or if you had AIDS.
Well, you should say HIV, because it's like HIV is one thing.
AIDS, okay, because you could be infected HIV, but doesn't mean you have AIDS. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for a while there, just you're like, if you got it, you were afraid to be outcasted, and because you were dirty or something.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways that happened here, or that happened with COVID, right? It's like like somehow I felt a little bad when we got it, because I was like, man, it's like, man, here I am coaching, and that's exactly how I got it. It's through the players, and then it got affected four or
Whole
three,
family.
affected four
But you
out of the
weren't
five
having
of us.
sex.
Great,
It would have been different
correct.
if you got it because you were like, that's how AIDS was. It was,
yes,
everybody knew
but
you
it still
this,
feels like it's like the way people feel. It's like it still made me feel like I was not
taking
as
care of
comfortable,
yourself.
as cautious as I could have been, which I wasn't.
Yeah.
And so it's like, ooh, what if, right? So anyway, I'm sorry to have spent so much time on it, but that was
So I know, there's a scene where back Isaac is approached by a mother, and she's asking him to find her son and talk to him because he's going
mm-hmm.
around, talking,
Yeah.
and she's worried about him.
Yes, because he's
Um,
out in them streets.
yeah.
Her son is out in them streets.
And it's interesting because she was saying, I know some people think you're too young, like you don't have enough experience, but she's like,
And then also that you come from a wealthy family, or
yeah,
that you
yeah, and
came
you don't
from a
know what
wealthy
it's,
family.
yeah, and you
That
don't.
was important.
At first I was thinking, why are they putting the scene in there? But it was, it gave you a few little things, because she did say you came from a wealthy family, and then the brother Joseph brings it up when they're in the bar a little bit.
Yes,
So
come from one of the biggest, one of the rich, wealthiest families from, like Poying district or something like that. Yeah.
so then we see, we're back with Hannah. She's drinking a Coke. That was interesting. They must have paid. It must be a product placement, huh? She's drinking a
Oh, I'm
Coke.
sure. I'm sure.
Solomon wants her to go to America so she can get more help
Mm-hmm.
with this kind of thing. And she's like, it is what it is. I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
And Solomon's a little freaked out about it.
And I
she
got
kind
it.
of jokes.
And she, man, it's brutal. It's brutal. And at the same time, it was kind of like, for the movie, it's necessary. For life, it's not the best way to go about this. But she was just like, look, I got this because of my lifestyle. And this is the consequences. It is what it is. And like, I was just like, ooh,
And she's
that was kind of hard to take, but it was necessary for the movie.
yeah. And then we cut to Isaac, and he finds the woman's son. You sound confused. We go back in time.
Oh yeah. I was
they keep going back. They're going back and forth,
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna kind of do it that way,
okay.
because I think maybe they did it that way to kind of show maybe perspective.
Oh, they're definitely.
the
I mean, yeah,
juxtaposition.
absolutely. They're juxtaposing all
Yeah.
the stories and everything. Makes
So
sense.
I'm just gonna do it that way. So Isaac finds him, and they talk a little bit. It was interesting. I mean, he's the stuff that they're saying. Did you get anything from them, their dialogue going back?
In the bar.
No, Isaac and this and
Oh.
the woman's son.
It was just. This is something that happens in blaxploitation movies a lot, meaning like so in the United States, black African Americans have not been in control of their own images, if you would, right? And so white America, white directors, they will portray, they oftentimes they portray African Americans in a very negative light, thugs, stuff like that, gangsters, and whatnot. What this to me is the same thing, kind of like that blaxploitation movies do, and that is humanize the gangster, to make it to where you understand their decision making, so that you don't automatically just judge them as evil or bad, right? And I would even go as far, well, right now, of course, Hansu has to fit into this equation, but he's not, but Hansu's not going to give the dialogue that just happened here, but he clearly has gone through this transformation of like, we're following the rules and we're still broke and hungry and starving, and they're still brutalizing us. Therefore, why follow the rules, right? And that is a revelation of all people who make a decision of doing something. It's like, because to me, it's like, I'm not so quick to judge when someone tells me that they've been slanging, hustling out there, and whatnot. It's like, I'm not so quick to judge. I'm like, man, I don't know what I would have did if I was in your situation. Because quite honestly, I was never in that situation, but I grew up really close to those situations. Like, and I've had, friends who are literally in prison, who made different decisions than I had to make, right? And so, so that dialogue to me was crucial, because he was like, if I can't control if I can't control my own destiny, what right do I even have to be a human being, right? And so that was the way that I felt about that. And so, and this is the other side of history that, the author of this story said has failed us, right? It's like, this is the other side of history. You need to understand why we made these decisions, right? And everything. So anyway, but that's what I got from that. I get a lot out of a little bit, clearly.
Yeah,
that was vital, but it was a relatively little scene, but it was vital in order to set up. It wasn't vital to set up this dude is probably going to wind up dead in a second, right? I mean, like, literally he'll wind up dead in a second. The crucial part of it was to explain Hansu.
Yeah,
that's why we needed that part of it. We needed that to explain Hansu.
There's another part in there where I felt like what you were saying, and I don't know if it was when Solomon got caught stealing and the convenience store owner was like, talking about these Koreans.
Mm-hmm. These Koreans.
Yeah. And I was like, it's so sad, because it's happened here in America too, during slavery, where, or even with Mexicans that come over, like, they're dirty, they're lazy, but you're not seeing the other side. You're not seeing that they're up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, the reason why they're there is because they're busting their ass picking our produce, or out there doing all this work. And yeah, you would be dirty if you did that, but you don't. And so why are you going to judge me for doing the work that's so completely necessary to do in this society?
Yeah.
I literally, I kid you not, right? It's like, teachers can go on strike and it could last for months. If garbage collectors went on strike, it would last for a couple of days. And so think about that for a second, right? Especially in big city areas like New York. It's like they literally cannot afford a garbage collectors to go on strike. They literally can't afford it because of the massive amount of disease and stuff like that would happen in literally days, and everything. And so it's like, so the dirty jobs are the most necessary jobs, or the most immediate jobs, and yet to be disrespectful of people doing that is to me is just way too much.
Yeah. So we go back to Hannah, and she tells Solomon, the Hannah you knew is gone. But she tells Solomon, you'll and it's interesting too, because I think it was at this point when she starts telling him how she got, who she got AIDS from.
Yeah.
And he was like, why are you telling me this? And that's when she was like, you need to know how I live my life.
Yeah.
And she looks at him and she says, you'll never be one of them. With your nice clothes and fancy degrees. They will leave the door just wide enough to make you believe you have a chance.
Yeah, that was so, man, I'm telling you, like, that right there, you could have said that same line in a blaxploitation film, or something directed for or made for Black people in the United States, and it would have just been it would just ring just as loud in that space as it did in Pachinko. I was just struck.
Yeah,
honestly, I was seriously struck.
So you see Solomon, he goes back to his job where he used to work and packs his things at the office.
Yep.
And then we see Isaac, and he finds his brother at the bar. And then so this happened, and I was like writing a lot of notes. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't pay attention to this. Solomon, he gets in a car with a guy that he meets right outside his building.
Yeah, the guy that was in the news way earlier.
Earlier that we watched from episode 1.
Yes.
And then we saw it again when the grandmother was watching the news.
Trying to say that their families have nothing to do with each other. However,
I can't wait to find out. Sounds like a soap opera.
We already know what's going to happen.
It's like a soap opera.
It's just the reveals.
So this guy offers him a business deal. And he says, we don't need to walk in our family shadows anymore. And he also says, I'm not ashamed of my grandfather and, what he's done because he saved me.
Yeah.
So he said his father was an alcoholic. And I'm like, this is where my brain was going, oh my God, like, who was it? Who's his father? Who's his grandfather? Oh, snap. I didn't want to verbalize who I was thinking it is because I just want to wait till it reveals itself. I just kind of want to like marinate in the
let it marinate.
Yeah.
Float on the stream, even though
I know. Don't make my brain is not gone there yet. It was like it got heavy.
But I'll tell you what, I'm still wondering who this guy's father is. That's deep.
What guy? The guy that's sitting with Solomon?
Correct. I am wondering.
Okay, I'm not gonna say anything.
Don't say it. You better not spoil this for me.
Oh, okay. Also, too, because I'm reading the book.
That's what I'm saying. It's like what you're saying is not a guess.
No. But we'll get there. We're gonna get there in this episode where we're gonna talk about that a little more.
You better not spoil it for me.
Oh, I forgot to look this up. Yakuza. Who called who a Yakuza?
Are you kidding me? You don't know?
I don't know what that was. Okay,
oh good. My goodness. There are times when
Bruce always has a good way of making me feel silly. Wow, what's a Yakuza?
How do you not know what a Yakuza is?
I never heard it.
Wow.
You can't blame me for never hearing a word. You're Japanese. What does it mean? I've never heard it.
You see her just throw that right back at me?
No, they can't see me because they're listening to the podcast.
That's why I love her.
What does it mean? Can you tell me?
I have to take moments like this because you belittle me like all the time because I can't do masculine things. And so I got to take these moments. I'm absorbing this.
Because we don't keep track, right? We don't tally each other's mistakes.
Oh, you tally mine for sure. Anyway, okay.
How much longer are you gonna?
Okay, Yakuza.
Yeah, what is that?
Japanese mafia.
Oh, done. Okay. So who called who a Yakuza?
So Hana called her mother's boyfriend.
Oh, because he
Yakuza because of the Pachinko parlor.
Oh, okay. How would I know that? How would I know that word? How do you know that word? Like, where do you hear it from? You hear it all the time?
Movies.
Oh, okay.
What kind of movies I've watched? Because the gangster thing is not a new thing, right? Clearly, and it seems to be very important in the type of movie, like the really hyper masculine shoot 'em up bang bang movies to like demonstrate other cultures having gangs.
He owns a Pachinko parlor, so she calls him a gangster. It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And
well, we don't know what kind of business he's running, so
maybe he is.
Well, this is what we know. This is what I know, and I'm like, to me it's like almost so obvious, because I mean we were just watching Ozarks, and so this is where I got this bit of information from, but I already kind of knew it, but that gambling part is like the easiest way to launder.
That yeah, for sure.
Large amounts of money, right? And so that I'm like, bro, you trying to sell this as legitimate, and but it's like clearly could be used
for sure
to launder money.
So you see, sorry, that was my alarm. You see the mother bathing, Hannah, and Hannah's not very nice to her mom.
She is not very nice to her mom.
But she's angry, right? Like she's going through her stages.
Of course.
So, and then Grandma Sunja arrives and takes over.
Mm-hmm.
And so Sunja always thought that Hannah always thought that Grandma Sunja didn't like her or her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they sent Solomon off to America,
Mm-hmm.
so he wouldn't be ruined. Hannah always thought they meant her, that she was going to ruin.
Yeah.
And so Grandma Sunja's like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't want to ruin him. And she tells the story. Once I had another son.
Yeah.
So now you can kind of figure out the storyline and what's happening here. And I ruined his life and now he's gone.
Woof.
That is why she was glad that Solomon went to America.
Yeah.
And then we go back and Sunja has her baby.
Yeah. Well, then so you clearly like, oh snap. I mean, the juxtaposing on this one is just incredible. I love it.
So now you know she had 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the
at least 2?
Yeah. So where's the other one? Okay. And she says, I know this face. And I'm like, oh, does she mean Hansu?
I know, right?
Did
right?
you?
That was the first thing
he had
that
this dark hair, just, all that hair.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, but she says, her mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so, oh, I miss having babies.
I don't miss having babies, but yeah.
It's
babies. I keep on looking at babies now. Like I'm just like, oh my goodness.
I miss
my baby girl used to be that size. My baby boy, I don't say baby boy.
The whole going to the hospital and having the baby, that is like, wow. And then like it's weird being my age and like you're not. I mean, some people are so happy. They're like, oh yeah, I'm so glad I'm over all that's all. But for me, I'm sad because that was just such a really cool, I mean, you're never going to do that again.
Yeah.
Grandchildren, but to be able to have that experience
absolutely
is a blessing.
Yeah, I am patiently waiting for grandchildren.
Yeah. So Joseph, so we didn't really talk about Joseph and Isaac at the bar.
It hasn't been there yet.
No, it is. It already.
You know what? Hey, I want to rewind something and say I did want to just say that Hannah's line about, that I know that you always didn't like me and that we would ruin that we would ruin Solomon, and she was like, I can't help but to be pissed off at you, even though I know you're right.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry, that was just a dope ass line. I was just like, and she delivered it. Like she delivered the hell out of that line, and so I was just like, "Yo, this one is filled with like like these really small moments, and yet they moved me. They really did move me on that one.
What happened at the bar that I wanted to talk about? They also mentioned like, Joseph's like, we had servants, and Isaac's just so calm, and he just thinks things through. He was just like, what, yeah, but where is he now? Because in the beginning, you saw Joseph talking to everybody else like, I was a noble, and everyone else was like, I was a noble, and he was like, why are you guys mocking me? And then so when Isaac gets there, somebody says to him, were you noble or something? And he's like, it doesn't matter. What we're all here together now,
right?
Very pragmatic.
Wise. Yeah. Taking a very pragmatic view of the world.
And you have to survive. If you could, well, everybody survives differently, right? Everybody,
for sure.
So I was like, for him, he lets all that go, and he said that too about we have to let that go. We're not helping our parents by continuously living in the past, but sometimes the anger helps people get through too.
That is true.
So I don't want to say like
that was me.
I was going to say like this helped them. This is better. Isaac's, looking at the world the way he looks at it, he's going to be better off for that. But, sometimes people do have to be angry,
right,
to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so let's see.
It's a weird thing, that whole anger thing, because without it, I would have been crushed, but with it, I was almost crushed also. Yeah. It's
people just have to go through.
Yeah, and it's a reflection, because the other part about because it was back with when Isaac was talking to the other dude,
Yeah.
that's the older son, and he was saying it's like, you know, we're so powerless against, you know, the Japanese, right? And so then we go home and we, you know, it's like we drink ourselves, you know, we drink, we do all of this stuff, and then, you know, we wind up going home and then we beat our wives because then we're not the lowest person. And I was just like, man, patriarchy all over the world, you know. And yeah, that was just, and then so in this moment, coming into this moment of just like, look, this is not a practical way of viewing the world. And I'll tell you what though, you need both edges of the sword, if you would. You need both
sometimes.
edges of the sword in order to, you know, for your people, if you would, to make it through, right? And so just throwing that out there.
So Hannah and her mother are together again, and Hannah says to her, I must look hideous to you. And her mom's like, I only care that you're in pain. You're still my Hannah. So Hannah ends up breaking down. And I think she needed that after she talked to Grandma Sunja.
Yeah.
I think that was healing.
Yes.
And then with her mother, and you know, she finally broke down. And I think she needed that. And then and Solomon too. Like Solomon needs healing too, because he goes to his grandmother and he blames her for being fired.
You don't need healing yet. He need an ass whooping right now. Talking to his grandmama like
that. He blames her for him making him soft and telling the property owner to sign.
To not sign.
And so to not sign, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And as he's walking out, she says, you know, I had a choice too. Oh, and I'm thinking, you know, he's a grown man for him not to know the story. Sometimes you don't want to talk about it. The story of his grandmother.
Yeah. No, I know. No. I'm saying it's like he's a grandchild. I don't know if he needs to know the story until right now. He needs it now.
Right. Yeah. You're right. And I'm saying it's just that he's already an adult, and and a lot of times you don't know the story of your parents or of your grandparents because, you know, I can imagine she didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, what is the point of talking about it? And there's probably pain.
Lots of pain, lots of trauma.
It's not, you don't want to talk to somebody when they're not ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, and she says, I had a choice too. How could I live how could I live life split in two? One could, you could talk about one and the other half hidden away. And then she says too, there's a thing about being successful and how you came to success.
Yes.
And we know that all along from Sunja.
Yes.
You know, she had some pride.
Yeah.
And
morality, I would say is the most.
This is the first time we heard why she chose not to accept Hansu's offer of taking care of her his way. You know,
she turned down unspeakable riches.
Yes, that's what she told Solomon, because he's like, well, why didn't you take it?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And she's exactly. Like, and just like you almost have to stop and just think about that for a moment. Like, well,
we did. We spent a whole episode thinking about, like, does she really, how did she turn that deal down?
No, I mean her life. Like, if she took it, and she says, I'd have to, my other half is hidden away. You know, and I think that says a lot to Solomon about, you know, you're Korean and you're trying to, you know, work in this Japanese, you know, establishment. You know, it's like you're living, you know, through all the episodes that we've seen and how he's been treated. He's living that for success.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I think that the most important thing, because the most important thing that she said was, and this is one of those moments where I'm just like, again, just floored with the simplicity of the statement and yet the depth of it, which was, why did you see that as weakness? Right? Like, you know, it's like, you made me weak, and so I didn't, tell that old woman to sign the papers, and now I'm ruined. And she was like, why would you see that as weakness? And I'm just like, yo, that's what's up right there. That's the kind of decision, and then she connects her story to his, and it's like, you gotta find your strength in your decisions, right? You made a decision, and that's not softness.
Yeah.
Or I mean, it's soft, but it's not. But softness is not the same thing as weakness, and empathy is not the same thing as weakness, and that's why there's a whole bunch of pushback on critical race theory and social emotional, intelligence and stuff like that. It's like people think that empathy is weakness, and it's like, no, it's not. As a matter of fact, it'll make us better human beings. But that's a road that clearly he has to travel.
Yeah.
And there was even a little kind of mic drop moment. I mean, just a little moment where it's like, man, you Koreans are always focused on money.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It was Hannah. Didn't Hannah say that?
Yeah.
It's because the mom was like, or the grandmother.
She said she spent a lot of money on
looking for you,
looking for you and everything. And so it's like, and so there's a thing, right? There's this thing about that's happening right under all of this, right? This mad pursuit of money and wealth and status and all of this stuff, and like at what cost? Right? At what cost? And everything. And so, those are the kind of things I'm looking forward to unfolding, and yet at the same time, I can't wait for you to read the last line of your thing. So go ahead.
So so the last scene in this episode, Hansu tells his wife that someone else
has succeeded where you have failed.
I know, that was so bad. He's like, where you failed, someone else has succeeded. That's so wrong. And he says, you are released from your conjugal duties. And her last words, your darling son, what will he think of you? No, and that was episode 6, right?
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I think the intensity of the hatred and yet duty of that marriage.
Because she,
man,
yes,
that just.
Oh, she also says,
that just burned through the camera.
He's like, I know that you didn't want this, and she's like,
it's been a curse to you.
Yeah. She's like, well, you've already like spoiled me.
Spoiled my body, sullied my body.
So yeah, that was hard for him. Did you see the look?
Oh yeah, he was
because he's Korean, even though he's wealthy.
Yeah,
he's still Korean. And for her to say that, because it's a business deal, she had no say. Her parents, her father, put this deal together.
Yeah.
So can you imagine her? She's like, I have nothing. You've spoiled me. I have nothing now. My family spoiled me.
Yeah. No, and to me, this is for people to really like understand this has to go like deeper. Just understand that this is not, what's the word I'm looking for? This is not, it's like some ethnic conflict. That this is, the Japanese and Koreans actually see themselves as different races. And so therefore the Koreans, and I'm going to tell you this flat out, there is a reason why I actually like Korean dramas, and I'm in that space more than my Japanese roots, is because I have always and will always identify with the underdog, with the oppressed. And their story makes so much more sense to me. And so when I'm watching this, I see myself as the Korean folks, not the Japanese folks, in all of this. And so it's just a powerful thing to think of this as, even though like when Japanese and Korean folks come to the United States, we just consider them Asian, and like they're all under one umbrella, while over there they are as separate from each other as Black people and white people are in the United States. Even though, like I said, over here we see them as pretty much the same group of people, which is wrong. And yet that's what we do, and you can't tell me anything otherwise. In regards to a national sense, not as individuals. People as individuals
Mhm.
can do amazing things, right? But yeah, and so then when you're looking at this, you can't don't you know it's like for us as the average American watching this, you cannot see the Koreans and Japanese as just different cultural groups. They are different racial groups.
Mhm.
Think of them as white and black. And now relook at this. Now re-listen to it, and maybe you'll get closer to the kind of animosity, tension, eugenics, like you are inferior to us. Maybe, and you'll get closer to that feeling if you understand it within like a black-white framework.
Yeah. So that was episode 6.
That was episode 6.
Thanks for listening and watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, we will see you for episode 7.
Indeed. Bye.
Bye.